Chair, broadcast is ready, and you may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. Good evening, committee members. Welcome to our second meeting of the Assembly, Commerce, and Labor for the day. Mr. Secretary, will you please call roll?
Assemblywoman Carlton. Assemblywoman Considine.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here.
Assemblyman Flores.
Present.
Assemblyman Frierson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Here.
Assemblywoman Martinez.
Present.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Chair Houdegy.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and please mark Vice Chair Carlton absent excused. Committee members, since I'm going to go through our housekeeping really quickly, and then we will get on to our one agenda item for this evening. Again, just want to remind everyone, exhibits, written testimony, amendments, all must be submitted noon the day prior to the committee meeting. People who wish to testify must pre-register on the legislature's website. You are encouraged to submit written testimony by emailing the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. Members, please remember to keep your cameras on to help us ensure that we have a quorum unless you are stepping away for non-committee related business. Members and presenters, please remember to be muted at all times. Unmute yourself to speak and then promptly mute yourself when you are done. Thank you, everyone. Let's begin with our first agenda item. Our first item on the agenda is a bill hearing on Assembly Bill 221. I will now open the bill hearing on Assembly Bill 221, which enacts provisions relating to the diagnosis, maintenance, and repair of certain digital electronic equipment. I believe we have Ms. Assembly Member Torres here to present the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening to the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. For the record, I am Assemblywoman Selena Torres, representing Assembly District 3. Assemblywoman Sarah Peters, representing Assembly District 24, will appear with me to present AB 221. This measure relates to the right to repair rules in Nevada. Today, we're joined by Carrie Sheehan, an attorney with a background in intellectual property law, John Callis, a cybersecurity expert, Don Mesereau, a small business owner, and Curtis Jones, a small business owner, who will provide testimony following our remarks. I want to remind the committee that I am presenting AB 221 as amended, and I want to thank the Alliance for Automotive Innovation and the Nevada Auto Dealers for your eagerness to work on the amendment, as well as manufacturing industry for gaming, so that we could propose an amendment that was palatable to these associations. Throughout this process, I have been transparent and willing to work with every stakeholder that has reached out. While some groups have expressed an interest to work on an amendment to myself and other stakeholders, no such additional amendment has been presented. While some members of the tech industry have made claims that they're willing to support increasing the amount of certified techs, they're asking us to do it without any oversight. This legislation creates such oversight. The tech industry as a whole could have implemented these consumer practices without this legislation, but the industry hasn't. And that's what brings us here today. If you buy a product, such as a smartphone or a computer, and it breaks, should it be easier for you to fix it yourself? Manufacturers of a wide range of products have made it increasingly difficult over the years to repair things by limiting the sales of replacement parts or charging independent repair providers an exorbitant amount of money to access the parts. I know this firsthand. Throughout college, I worked at a store that completed several different phone repairs. As time went by, the schematics became harder to access, and phones often stopped working after third-party parts were put in a device. The New York Times recently reported this trend affects not only game consoles and farm equipment, but cell phones, military equipment, and even hospital ventilators and life-saving devices that have proven crucial in saving lives during COVID-19 pandemic. This legislation specifically focuses on consumer electronics, the devices that every member here has within arm's reach, our cell phones. What is the right to repair movement? It guarantees that individuals have property rights over their electronics so they can repair them if they want to. It also ensures equal access to critical repair information, like manuals and schematics, and fair and reasonable access to parts and tools, including the equipment that you need to diagnose those devices. Quite simply, this bill allows for you to just fix your stuff. The right to repair laws benefit our community, both environmentally and economically. Right to repair promotes small business at a competitive marketplace by preventing inflated costs for manufacturers for replacement parts. It also allows many small businesses to perform repairs that manufacturers will not do, and gives consumers more options to foster a more competitive marketplace for small local businesses to thrive. Hardworking Nevada families have been hit hard by COVID-19. Expanding access to certified tech programs is good for Nevadans. It expands access for business owners to provide consumers with the options that they need. Presently, tech companies limit access to the materials and information that are necessary for economic competition, which inherently creates consumer choice. I introduce this bill because this policy will help Nevada business, as you'll hear from some business owners here today. Furthermore, this policy helps Nevada consumers. Right to repair saves Nevada families money. Repairing instead of replacing electronics can save American families about $330 a year. With stronger repair rights, this money can be spent on repairs that'll circulate in our local economy. If consumers in Nevada had the right to repair their devices, the reuse of devices would reduce the demand for natural resources. According to the United States Public Interest Research Group, Americans purchase 161 million new smartphones each year, which takes 23.7 million tons of raw material to satisfy, or the equivalent to an Empire State Building in materials every 6 days. Repairing electronics is critical to preventing waste. According to the World Economic Forum, e-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. In fact, 416,000 cell phones are discarded every day in the United States alone. Making it easier to repair these devices would mitigate climate change by reducing the energy consumed in the manufacturing phase of production. The right to repair would also help repair the digital divide. Early in the pandemic, a nationwide laptop shortage left millions of students unprepared for virtual learning. As an educator, I saw firsthand how families struggled to share one device with several school-aged children while school districts work to create a one-to-one ratio of devices. Due to disruptions in the supply chain, families and schools were left without enough internet-connected devices for online school and remote work during the summer and early fall 2020, widening the inequity gap between low-income and high-income families. The right to repair will give schools and other institutions the information they need to maintain equipment and empower the refurbished computer market, saving taxpayer dollars and improving digital access. At this time, Assemblywoman Peters will now provide an overview of the bill.
Welcome to the committee, Assembly Member Peters.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres. That was a great overview of the need for this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I am Sarah Peters, representing Assembly District 24. I would like to briefly cover the sections of AB 221. We are proposing 2 amendments, and we will cover those at the end. Existing law in Title 52 of Nevada Revised Statutes regulates trade practices and other commercial activities. Assembly Bill 221 generally requires manufacturers of digital electronic equipment with a wholesale value of $5,000 or less sold or used in Nevada to make certain documentation, parts, and tools related to the diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of such equipment available. Users of this information include owners and providers of diagnosis, maintenance, and repair services who are not under an arrangement with the manufacturer to provide such services. Sections 3 through 17 make various definitions. Section 18 of the bill requires an original equipment manufacturer to make available any documentation, part, or tool necessary for the diagnosis, maintenance, or repair of the equipment, and any documentation, part, or tool necessary to disable and reset the function of the equipment if the equipment contains certain security functions, makes those available. Also, it says costs and terms under which an original equipment manufacturer is required to make such documentation, parts, and tools available. This includes any discount, rebate, convenient means of delivery, means of enabling fully restored and updated functionality, rights of use and other incentives or preference the original equipment manufacturer offers to an authorized repair provider, and any additional cost, burden, or impediment the original equipment manufacturer imposes on an independent repair provider. So it creates parity. Section 18 of the bill generally requires such items, including documentation, parts, and tools, to be made available to an owner or independent repair provider at costs and under terms that are equivalent to the costs and terms a manufacturer makes such items available to an authorized repair provider. Again, parity. It also requires an original equipment manufacturer to make software documentation and tools available at no cost to an owner or independent repair provider. Section 19 of the bill imposes certain requirements with respect to documentation, parts, and tools to enable the repair of digital electronic equipment that has a wholesale value of $100 or more, and that original equipment manufacturer has made an express warranty or guarantee. Any original equipment manufacturer must, during the warranty period, make such documentation, parts, and tools available to an owner or independent repair provider at a cost and under terms which are equitable in light of the actual costs to the manufacturer to prepare and distribute the documentation, making sure that they're not putting any additional overhead on top of those wholesale costs. Exclusive of any research and development costs, the ability of the owner or independent operator to afford it, and the means by which it is distributed. So again, not putting impediments in place for independent repair providers. Section 20 of the bill makes a violation of these provisions a deceptive trade practice. Section 21 of the bill provides that the provisions of the bill do not apply to a motor vehicle manufacturer, manufacturer of motor vehicle equipment, motor vehicle dealer, or any product or service of such a person. Additionally, an original equipment manufacturer is not required to divulge a trade secret or alter the terms of any arrangement with an authorized repair provider, with certain exceptions that purport or to waive, avoid, restrict, or limit the obligations of the original equipment manufacturer. So keeping parity in those contracts. And finally, the provisions of AB 221 apply to digital electronic equipment, which includes a camera, cellular phone, computer, gaming device, or tablet with a value at wholesale of $5,000 or less, sold or in use on or after October 1st, 2021. At this time, Assemblywoman Torres will go through the proposed amendments.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, as I noted, we have submitted a conceptual amendment which is available on Nellis. We propose to amend Section 4 of this bill to specify that the definition of digital electronic equipment does not include gaming devices as defined in NRS 463-0155, which refers to slot machines and mobile gaming. We also propose to amend this bill to provide that the provisions of this bill do not apply to motor vehicle dealers, motor vehicle manufacturers, and manufacturers of motor vehicle equipment. And while I know this amendment specifically dealing with automotive has been a work in progress, I know that this is something that our legal team and the Automotive Alliance have been working on over the last couple of days to make sure that this intent presented to the committee is met. Today, you may hear that from those opposed to the bill about their concern of low quality or dangerous repairs being performed by owners and the potential for fraud or abuse by independent repair providers. Controlling repair and servicing through authorized dealers and licensed repair technicians is not about safety or quality. With electronics like smartphones and computers, where data privacy is an issue, the vast majority of repairs, like repairing a screen or replacing a camera, do not require the repair professional to log into the device. Should he or should she need to do so, it would require consumers' consent. Independent repair shops are not more prone to bad behavior than an authorized repair shop. Reported incidents are rare, and a review of reports from law enforcement would suggest that employees at authorized repair shops are just as likely as those at independent shops to engage in such activity. Restricting the right to repair electronics not only hurts the consumer, but increases the demands on our environment. Having independent owner repair shops is critical in maintaining vital competition in the aftermarket repair and service of electronic devices, appliances, and other equipment. As we noted at the beginning of the presentation, I'll introduce the next presenters at the permission of the chair. And the next few presenters will be kind of brief remarks. And I would like to introduce Carrie Sheehan, an attorney with a background in intellectual property law.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres. My name is Carrie Sheehan. I'm an attorney and policy expert with a background in intellectual property law, and I'm here today representing iFixit on behalf of iFixit, the free open source international repair manual for everything. I'd like to address some of the concerns and claims that you're likely to hear from the big tech lobbyists who are here opposing the bill today. First, this bill does not require the disclosure of trade secrets. The bill specifically exempts trade secrets from the required disclosures, and manufacturers are only required to disclose the information as necessary to provide needed repair information to independent repair providers and to owners of consumer electronic devices. Further, the information that is needed for repair doesn't include the kind of information that's likely to expose production processes for electronic devices. For example, it's not going to include manufacturing schematics. The information that this bill requires manufacturers to share is just that information that they're already sharing with their authorized service providers. And those authorized service providers might not be under any obligation to keep that information secret. If you're distributing a service manual to every 19-year-old Genius Bar employee across the country, you're unlikely to be able to claim that that information is entitled to trade secret protection. Lastly, even if this bill did require the disclosure of trade secrets, which I've said it doesn't, this legislature would be well within its rights to craft exceptions to trade secret protection in the public interest. That's fully consistent with the Federal Defend Trade Secrets Act. Second, this bill doesn't conflict with any federal intellectual property rights like copyright or patent law. Courts have recognized a right to repair under copyright law for at least 100 years. And even the US Copyright Office has acknowledged that repair is non-infringing and has endorsed that the right to repair exists for everything from phones to tractors. This bill does not authorize any unlawful circumvention of copyright protection systems or any kind of copyright infringement in any way. It merely requires manufacturers to provide device owners and independent repair providers with the very same parts, tools, and information that they're already providing to authorized service providers. It doesn't authorize the further distribution of the works, and it also doesn't authorize the creation of any derivative works. Copyright law doesn't give the manufacturers a right to control the repair markets, and courts have long recognized that and long pushed back on attempts by manufacturers to do so. Fourth, this bill is not preempted in any way by federal intellectual property law. Federal intellectual property law only preempts laws that aim to create kind of the equivalent rights to those that are already protected under copyright or patent law, and we're unaware of any case in which a claim of preemption under copyright law for a bill that doesn't create those equivalent rights has been upheld. Finally, courts have long recognized what you and I know to be common sense, that if you buy a product, you own it and you should be able to repair it. If you can't, our entire system of ownership is undermined. Therefore, I urge you to pass this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
And at this time, before we do that, Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, if we could pass it to Mr. John Callis, a cybersecurity expert.
Thank you very much for letting me testify here on AB 221. My name is John Callis. I am a cybersecurity expert, and I work as the Director of Technology Projects at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I've also founded my own cybersecurity companies, including one called Blackphone that made a security-enhanced Android smartphone. I have also worked on cybersecurity for companies that include Apple and what is now McAfee. Cybersecurity and cyber safety are important facets of repair. They're not insurmountable obstacles to AB 221. The manufacturers of consumer electronics already have to deal with these considerations with their authorized repair centers. These devices carry sensitive information about us, and thus they must be protected from prying outsiders. The manufacturers already do this. Some major chains, such as Best Buy, are repair centers for brands such as Samsung, Apple, and Nintendo. These manufacturers have procedures in place for safety during repair because there have been cybersecurity incidents in the past. Therefore, the manufacturers put the safeguards in place to protect their customers. They have policies, procedures, and guidelines for the repair centers. AB 221 does not require them to do anything they're not already doing, merely to extend what they already do for Best Buy to the neighborhood repair place, or even people who want to repair their own equipment. Me, I'm the sort of person who takes my car to the dealer and my electronics to authorized places. But I don't think that people should be forbidden to do it themselves, nor should there be any barriers to entry for smart people who want to set up their own businesses and compete with the big chains. Consumers are smart enough to make their own choices, and these laws add no additional burden to the manufacturers themselves. AB 221 is a boon to both the people of Nevada who want to repair their own equipment and for those who have the drive and imagination to start their own business. Thank you very much for your time and for allowing me to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Callis. Assemblyman Torres, for the record. At this time, at the leisure of the chair, I'd like to introduce Joe Mesro. He is the owner of Error Route, a local independent repair shop.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joe Mesro, owner of Error Out Computer Services. I am what's called a break-fix tech. I have been helping people fix their computers since 1989 when I was in the Navy. When I was serving, there was only one real data processing technician on board, and that was me, that had the knowledge to fix the PCs. I was able to replace every single part from the motherboard to the little plastic power button. Either I had to swap out the part or break out a solder iron and a schematic. A few years later, I had to replace a motherboard of an Apple III. I was able to find the part from Apple at a decent price at the time without them even batting an eye. If memory serves, when they came out with the Macintosh lines, they locked down all the hardware and made it even more difficult to find parts. During my first year as Error Out, I had an iMac that had a bad video output. I traced it down to the known issue of the video card. I brought it to one of the geniuses to fix. They took it back and confirmed that it was a known issue. However, at that time, they refused to fix it under their extended warranty, which they themselves extended. They wanted $800 just for the part and another $300 something for the labor, where I would only charge $80 for that repair. I asked them if they'd sell me the part only. They certainly said no. It was against Apple policy. Unable to fix and unable to find a working version of that part, I had to return the iMac unfixed and refund his money. I now handed his useless 27-inch iMac and followed me out and then tossed that once beautiful 3-year, $2,300 iMac in the dumpster. That was a sad day because I knew it would be adding all the mercury in the environment. After this fun event, I decided to quit doing Mac hardware, period. I don't want the headaches. I don't want to have to refund money, all because Apple felt like bricking it. Also, if I fix an Apple product with generic parts, who knows if Apple will decide to limit the functionality of it or like they do with batteries. Recently, even the latest line of iPhones will not work if you switch out the cameras. I'm unsure if you know this, but most companies include in their user agreements that you, the person who just paid upward to $1,000 for this new iPhone, are not even the owner of it. And that's how Apple could brick your phone if you use third-party parts. Apple's business practices are not unusual for a host of other tech brands in this field. So that's my story for this.
Thank you, Mr. Mesro. I appreciate it. And at the permission of the chair, I'd like to introduce, Assemblyman Torres, for the record, I'd like to introduce one final presenter, Mr. Curtis Jones, President of Technology Center, Inc., which is in Sparks, Nevada.
I am Curtis Jones, for the record. I started in the computer business about 20 years ago when I moved to Nevada. During that time, we had up to 15 employees at this store. Now we only have 5. We have watched so many businesses disappear in this city because of the mega corporations and the manufacturers' restrictions and their unfair business practices. There is only a few computer repair stores left in this town. manufacturers have made it almost impossible to repair their product. They no longer offer spare parts and no longer offer the schematics for us to be able to trace the problem. Individuals have tried to put up videos online of how to repair products. The manufacturers have done everything possible to take them down so that nobody can repair their product. We have watched manufacturers increasingly make the product unrepairable. True printer manufacturers that we help have tried to shut down, tried to stop the practice. When someone calls them up to ask about getting their printer repaired, they tell them, just throw it away if it's less than or more than a year old. Small businesses and individuals are being financially drained by this practice. My customers come to me pleading me to fix their printers and their computers. I have to tell them I can't. I can't get parts. I can't get any help from the manufacturer to do it. They have to just take it to the dump. They don't want to do that. They don't want to have to go buy a new printer because it's just too expensive. We have to send truckloads of computers and printers to the dump every year because the recycling option is now disappearing. There's no way to recycle anything anymore. Manufacturers are trying to change the option of ownership into rental so that you no longer own your computer or printer. They can just do whatever they want. If they're done, they will shut it off. This is going to kill more small businesses in Nevada. We believe we really have the right to own our product. We believe we should have the right to repair that product. My customers want this right. They want the right to come to my store to talk to an actual person, to have someone show them what is wrong with their computer and to fix that computer. They don't want to sit on hold for hours going through endless menus trying to talk to the manufacturer and they give up. I can't run my business with having to send my product off to the manufacturer. Right now, the usual amount of time that they have to wait to get it back if they have to send it to the manufacturer is 6 weeks. I can't be without my computer for 6 weeks. None of my employees or other businesses that we support can be without their computer for 6 weeks. I can't afford to buy new computers every year like the manufacturers want me to do. I can't afford to buy printers every year like they want us to do. This is running us into the ground. I have a short story of what happened today. We are a Epson certified and authorized repair shop for them. We were brought a printer that's worth about $800 to repair. We finally discovered that this little part right here is the problem. This little part right here tells the printer which ink to print at what time. When we went to the manufacturer to look at the schematics, this part does not exist on the schematics. My technician went through 12 people at Epson today trying to find out what this part is and what the part number is so we can order it. None of those 12 people in their tech department knew what this was because it wasn't on the diagram. We have to tell the customer that they have to throw that $800 printer away and buy a new one. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. John. To supplement Torres, for the record, at this time, Chair, we would like to open ourselves to any questions and concerns and comments that the committee may have.
Thank you, Assembly Member and your co-presenters, and both Assembly Members, Torres and Peters, for your presentation and your co-presenters as well. Members, now's the time to message me if you have questions. I am going to start with Assembly Member Tolles.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the presentation, and thanks for working with stakeholders and continuing to work with stakeholders, and thanks for bringing the experts on. I appreciated hearing their perspective. One quick clarifying question, because I heard farm equipment mentioned a couple times, and I know that there's some amended language to clarify what's not included in this bill. Is farm equipment or agricultural equipment in this bill or explicitly being excluded from this bill? If you could clarify that, I appreciate it.
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Tolles. And at this time, I'm going to quickly ask the chair if she doesn't mind if I just go directly to the members.
Yes, Assembly Member, please feel free to go directly to them.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Toles. So no, the farming equipment is not included in this piece of legislation. I understand that there was a concern that was perhaps emailed to us earlier today that was asking the same thing. But my understanding, and I'm sure legal could confirm with us, but when we requested legislation, we specifically asked that it did not touch farming equipment.
Perfect. I'm sure if that's different, legal would explain. And that was my understanding as well. I just wanted to make sure that we got that on record to assure those people who were concerned about that I didn't understand that was in there either. And that we'll just get that confirmed. So thank you.
I'm going to go to our legal counsel, Mr. Foss, to see if he wants to address that and just confirm it. But
thank you, Madam Chair. Sam Quast, Committee Counsel. So the definition of digital electronic equipment means any product with a value at wholesale of $5,000 or less that depends on its functioning in whole or in part on digital electronics embedded in or attached to the product. I'm not exactly sure I don't believe we have a definition of farm equipment. So the bill doesn't specifically exclude anything to do with farming or anything of that nature. But if that particular farm equipment that you were discussing did not fall within that definition, then it wouldn't.
Thank you for, if I could respond real quickly to Mr. Quast, to the chair.
yes, thank you, Mr. Quast, and yes, Assembly Member Torres.
Thank you. And I just want to make it very clear on the record that the intent of the legislation is so as not to include farming equipment. It's really supposed to be for consumer electronics. One of the issues we came with the drafting of this legislation is there's currently no definition for consumer electronics. I think when we say the term consumer electronics, the majority of the committee knows exactly what I'm talking about. They know we're referring to our cell phones, to laptops, to our computers, but we're not referring to farming equipment. We're not referring to slot machines. And so I'm definitely willing to continue working with stakeholders to ensure that we tighten up that definition a little bit.
Thank you, Assembly Member Torres. Assembly Member Toles, did you have a follow-up?
I do. Thank you so much for getting those clarifications on the records. And I didn't get a chance to look up the deceptive trade practices, and we don't have to look that up, but that's what I understand is the, do we know offhand what those penalties are for deceptive trade practices? And then I guess I wanted to ask a follow-up on the other side.
As a woman, sorry for the record, if it would allow for Mr. Kloss to respond to the penalties for deceptive trade practices, because I believe that's in our current NRS. I think it's referred to in section 20.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so if we could just go to Mr. Kloss to respond to that.
Yeah.
Mr. Kloss, you're available.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The particular penalties, and if you just give me a moment to look these up, but a person is subjected to civil and criminal penalties. And I have the numbers, it just takes a moment.
Maybe while he's looking that up, the second part of that question was, what would be the recourse for someone if they were to, and I did appreciate the testimony from the experts, but I think one of the experts said there, would be something within legislative purview to address somebody breaching security issues for a consumer if they were to, bug the cell phone that they just repaired, or if they were to share something that with somebody else who was unauthorized to receive those schematics, what would be the recourse for them? So I'm just trying to get a comparison of what's the recourse for the tech company that doesn't release the information, and what's the recourse for somebody who does, in fact, breach security, safety, or share intellectual property information, so I can get a comparison.
I'm going to let Assemblymember Torres answer that part of your question first, Member Toles, and then we'll go back to our legal counsel to address the first part of your question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Assemblywoman, for the question. At this time is if Ms. Xian is still on the call.
Yes. Hi.
You're going to go ahead and answer that for us. Thank you.
Sure. So in a circumstance where there was a breach of private information, I would start by saying that, these kind of breaches happen with the manufacturers all the time. And these kind of breaches happen with authorized repair providers all the time. And I'll say, when we think about device security, we think about, whether that device rolled off the assembly line as a secure device or whether it rolled off the assembly line vulnerable. If a device is vulnerable from the moment it leaves the manufacturer's production process, then it doesn't matter where you're bringing that device. If it's an authorized repair provider or the manufacturer's in-house technicians or an independent repair technician, there's the problem is that the device is vulnerable to attack from anybody. If a device is secure, then it doesn't really matter where you bring it. It won't be subject to any kind of attack or intervention. Now, whether or not, or what we can do to the extent that someone does breach someone else's private information or security on the device, if they bring it to get repaired, I would expect there to be causes of action under Nevada law for things like breach of privacy, exposure of personal information, things like that. I'm not an expert on Nevada's law, unfortunately. I'd love to be. But I would say that, generally there are most states have kind of existing cause of actions for that, or existing laws that someone could bring a lawsuit under against the person who does the breach, not necessarily against the manufacturer, unless it's found that the manufacturer produced a device that was not secure. Does that answer your question?
I think generally maybe we could have legal weigh in and certainly could take it after as a follow-up.
Sure.
I'm going to go now at this time to our legal counsel, Mr. Cross, to talk about the criminal penalties when it comes to deceptive trade practices.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sam Quast, Committee Counsel. So the civil and criminal penalties for deceptive trade practices are set forth in NRS 598.0999. It provides for a civil penalty of $5,000, and then for a first offense, guilty of a misdemeanor. For a second offense, gross misdemeanor, and for a third and subsequent offense, category B felon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Quast. I appreciate you looking that up for us. Okay, I am going to go to Assemblymember Hardy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I just wanted to go back to, I can't remember the name of the gentleman that owned the business, but he was talking about how it used to be he could get a phone or computer or whatever, and he could do a vast array of repairs to that device. And then over time, it's, become less and less of the types of repairs that he could make. So I was just wondering if he could maybe talk about that a little bit more, of the more advanced repairs that he used to could make, and now kind of what are they allowed to do? Like if someone brings a phone in, what are they allowed to repair?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, and I'll go ahead and start. And I think I might be able to answer that question to completion. So as I mentioned, I used to work at a battery store, and so I worked on devices like our cell phones all of the time. And I worked repairing cell phones at a time when you could complete more repairs on a cell phone. And I watched as we had that transition and had less and less repairs that we were able to make. When as soon as you put the new volume button on, the phone stopped operating. And that's called bricking. And I think, I can't remember which of my co-presenters mentioned it, but bricking is when that phone just stops working, where you put a new screen in and the phone's working and then it maybe stops. It's called bricking. And they make it so that your device stops operating once you put this third-party part in. But unfortunately, us as consumers don't have access to those OEM parts. And we can take it to Apple, and perhaps they can fix it. There's certain things that they can do on our device, or we can take it to Android, we can take it to our insurance if we have phone insurance, but they can't. That oftentimes they'll give you a refurbished device. They're not going to sit there and replace your screen for you like you can at these small businesses like Mr. Mesereau owns and like Mr. Jones owns. That's where you can go in and get your device repaired. So over time, we've seen that those parts not available, and we've seen updates made to devices that would make that device stop operating. Additionally, we've had, I think Mr. Jones might have hit on this a little bit in his testimony, the schematics have become less and less available. And so I think the incident that he showed where he demonstrated a part of the device, it was a part that came out of that machine that was not a part of the schematics. And he's a certified an authorized repair provider here in the state of Nevada, and he couldn't get access to the part that he needed to complete the repair. And it wasn't even a part of the schematics that was sent to him. This piece of legislation will prevent that type of incident from occurring to ensure that they have access to those parts. They have access to the schematics. Schematics, for those of you that aren't maybe working in a tech shop, the schematics is going to be like the IKEA picture of what your device is. So that like pull apart, put together version of what your device, your computer, your cell phone, your tablet looks like. And so I think, this legislation ensures that not only the schematics, that image, that pull apart image, it reminds me of like those old books. My dad always worked on his cars growing up, and he has these old books of like how to pull apart and put back together your car. I'm sure somebody else on here knows exactly which kind of books they are. And he has those books at his house still for all the old cars that he ever had. And so he could pull it back together and put it and pull it apart. And so essentially we want that to be available for these consumer electronics so that you can do that. You can take it to these independent repair provider shops.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Oh, okay, next I am going to go to Assembly Member Considine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assembly Members Torres and Peters, for bringing this bill to us. I have a question, though, because lithium batteries, you hear that it's dangerous if you try to change a battery or something and you don't get training or something, that your phone could catch on fire. So I'm just want to ask about like any dangers like that. Is that something that repair people already know, or is that just kind of a stay away from the phone kind of a thing?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Considine, for the question, Assemblywoman Torres for the record. And I think that, our opponents are right. Lithium ion batteries are dangerous, right? And they're so dangerous that they put them in the devices that most of you have probably within arm's reach. They're so dangerous that you can buy them at just a battery store. You can purchase them. I'm not contesting the fact that batteries can be dangerous. Alkaline batteries can be dangerous. Motorcycle batteries, where you literally are putting the acid inside of the battery, can be dangerous. Car batteries can be dangerous. In fact, as a child, I watched my mom's car catch on fire from a car battery. So any type of time you're working with chemicals, there can be danger. There can be an element of danger. I definitely understand the intent to ensure that we are keeping our consumers safe and that we're keeping our shop providers safe. I think that there should be packaging on those batteries so that individuals understand that they're dangerous, just like we have packaging on other batteries that lets them know that they're flammable, that they are dangerous. But, I think that the consumer should still have access to that repair. I know that Assemblywoman Peters would like to make some additional remarks to this.
Assemblywoman Torres, you really have a good grasp on the ideas of the dangers of these products, the potential dangers of these products. I just wanted to add a personal experience. I had a cellular phone and never did I take it to a third party to get repaired, and the battery still blew up. So it's not isolated to third parties using or replacing or batteries. Additionally, I don't know anybody who would repair a battery. Maybe that's a piece that some repair shops would do, but that's not a typical practice for these kinds of batteries. They're manufactured, and then if they need to be repaired, they are usually recycled.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question from Assembly Member Martinez.
Thank you, Chair Hadagi. Assemblywoman Torres, when Mr. Johns was talking about, like, for instance, the big printer and how he just needed that little piece, by us, the consumer, being able to have him fix our computer, not our computer, our printers or any of the electronic devices, this would be good for our environment, because then we wouldn't be throwing away these big items, and it would help reduce our carbon footprint, wouldn't it?
Sorry for the record, 100% Assemblywoman Martinez. I think when I thought about this piece of legislation, I thought a lot about like my grandparents. And growing up, I would go visit my grandparents frequently, and I don't think my grandparents ever replaced anything in their household. It was like pulling strings with them to replace anything. They had the same radio that they would listen to the news on when my dad was a kid, in their garage. They had the same television. It was still a black and white TV. And I grew up at a time when we shouldn't have had black and white TVs in homes. And they would just, go and they would fix it, right? They would get the light bulb and they would replace it. They would take it down the street to the repair shop where they could fix it. And I think, unfortunately, we've moved away from that time, right? And we're seeing more and more e-waste. And the reason that we've moved away from that is in large part because of our inability to repair the devices that we have. During the special session, unfortunately, my phone broke in the middle of special session. As everybody in this body knows, you need your device more during session, more during a special session, and even more so during a special session during a global pandemic. And unfortunately, I had to just go and get it replaced. There was no fixing for that issue. And I think it would be great to enable and empower Nevadans to get their devices fixed by Nevada businesses.
Follow-up, Chair?
Yes, Assemblymember Martinez, please.
So this would be a win-win not only for the environment, but for the consumer as well, then, wouldn't it, Assemblywoman Torres?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Martinez. Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, I would 100% agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Martinez, for the question. Next, I will go to Assemblymember Duran.
Thank you, Chair Hadagi. Yes, thank you for the presentation. I think, everything that's been said here now, it's been so difficult with the technology evolving daily. My question, so by having these repair shops get this information, would there be like training for them as well as increase the small businesses that can repair these electronics?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Duran and Assemblywoman Torres, for the record. And I appreciate that question because it was a part of the conversation that I brought up time and time again as something that I was comfortable at amending into our legislation with the stakeholders. And I reached out to stakeholders at the beginning of session. I made it very transparent about what piece of legislation I was working on and how it would impact their industries. I had meetings scheduled for the last 3 weeks on this piece of legislation. So as soon as it was introduced, as individuals were reaching out to me to express their concerns for this legislation, I acknowledged that I was comfortable with us putting in some type of certification training. I think, some of the companies right now do have some type of certification training, but there was a lot of pushback into putting it into legislation. And if the committee wanted to see us, allow for there to be that training, allow for, if a tech company wants to require some training on it, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that amendment. If a tech company wants to require that there's some type of contractual agreement so that they can't be the sharing of information between that independent repair shop and the company, I am also open to that. But I ask that the companies come to the negotiating table in good faith and willing to actually present an amendment that we can present to this committee, because that's not what occurred here today. Although I'm definitely open to that. So if that was something that would appease the committee, I would definitely be willing to do so.
Follow up, please.
Yes, Assemblymember Duran.
So not only by offering maybe these small businesses some certified training, it'll probably take care of some of these issues that or these possible questions about trade secrets and so on and so forth with that, because I think by going to, you have a certified used car shop that checks your car over before they sell it and stuff like that, because they have to be through certain training. This will also save money for our constituents throughout the state, as well as provide businesses to increase. So it sounds like a win-win for me. Thank you.
Yeah, Assemblywoman Durant and Assemblywoman Torres for the record. Yeah, I definitely think that this is a way for us to increase the amount of gainful employment that we have in the state of Nevada as tech companies. And I think that there are a number of tech companies right now that currently provide independent repair providers with certification programs. And I think that's excellent. And I think that this legislation allows for them to continue to do so. And I think that this will increase the amount of viable techs that we have throughout the state of Nevada, which is good for business, good for small business, and good for tech companies.
Members, any other questions? Now's the time to message me. Assemblymember O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. One of the nice things about being one of the last question makers is so many of my concerns have already been discussed. I really want to thank Ms. Torres. We had a discussion earlier on this bill, and I must say, the more I hear her talk, the more I hear these questions, I stronger and stronger feel towards the bill. And I know this question was one of the first ones asked, but I just need some clarification if I could, please. Because my feeling is just about everything nowadays has a computer in it. I know my TV, we just remodeled or in progress of remodeling the kitchen, the stove, the microwave, all have computer components in them. So it's the definition. Once again, I liked your definition about, you're basically talking about cell phones, tablets, camera, computer, gaming device, tablets. So the question, how about these other items? Would they be included in the definition? From what you said earlier, it sounds like they wouldn't be. And for the rest of it, I like the part about contractual contracts and the training. I think you have some excellent points. So thank you for the time on this bill. If you could just help me clarify the definition. I know it's difficult.
Yeah, thank you, Assemblyman O'Neill. And I think that's a good question. And I think that the conversation, the dialogue that we've had today with the committee has helped me realize maybe a need for us to maybe strengthen some of the language, because the intent is really for us to be reaching those devices. And I do agree with some of the points made in this committee that perhaps the definition as is kind of opens it up. So I think that this is a conversation that we can have, and I'm open to continuing to have with legal to see how we can kind of maybe what we can do to narrow that definition down a little bit more. Like I said, there's currently no definition in statute, but I'm definitely interested to see if maybe we can find a little bit stronger of a definition for this, because you're right. The intent is for us to really capture those types of devices, gaming consoles, your laptops, your computers, your printers, but it's not, the intention of this legislation is not to capture, your refrigerator.
Thank you, Ms. Torres.
For your outdoor equipment, I know I got an email about that, your outdoor recreational ATVs and things like that. That's not the intent of this either.
And I got those same emails, so I appreciate that. But thank you, Ms. Torres, and thank you for allowing me the time, Chair.
Thank you for your question, Assemblymember O'Neill. Assemblymember Kasama.
Thank you so much, Chair. So my question, and I think you may have touched a little bit about, but can you please expand a little bit, what are the considerations in the bill for data privacy? How are we going to make sure that sensitive information is protected within the bill?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Torres. For the record, I think at this time, if Mr. Callis is still on, I think he might be the best person to answer this question.
Yes, I'm still on. The data privacy concerns are the same that they would be otherwise. And some devices have big concerns and some have little ones. And some devices protect your data and your privacy rather well. I mean, for example, your smartphone is extraordinarily good at doing it. Your television less so. A console that you'd play video games on, even less than that. And the things that are put in place are there, and they would be the same no matter who does it. And I encourage the manufacturers to do that. Right now, one of the debates that we have going on in state and federal is, in fact, that sometimes these are so good that law enforcement would like them to be less good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Assemblymember Tolles, I believe I saw you raise your hand again. Yep.
Oh, thank you. I was fully expecting Assemblyman O'Neill to ask about his bicycle in the behind him. But actually, I think Assemblywoman Duran did a wonderful job asking some questions about how this melds with that certification process, and I appreciated Assemblywoman Torres's response to continuing to work through those. So I'll surrender my last question. I think we covered it. Thank you so much, and thanks for the presentation and all the dialogue. Really appreciate it.
Assemblymember Tolles. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I am going to move this portion of the hearing into testimony and support. I believe we have some members here to testify on video. I have, starting with testimony and support, Nick Christensen. Do we have you here, Nick Christensen? Thank you.
I'm here. Members of this committee, my name is Nikolai Christensen, for the record. I have worked as an IT professional in a wide variety of roles for almost 3 decades. I'm also here today as a volunteer for the Sierra Club. On behalf of the Sierra Club and our more than 40,000 members and supporters in the state of Nevada, I'm speaking in support of AB 221. As an IT professional, I know that right to repair is good for Nevada businesses. When I can perform repairs or upgrades myself or farm out repairs to locally operating shops, that will save my company and my customers time and money due to less downtime and give me increased flexibility as to whom I want to repair my equipment. Right to repair also allows repair shop businesses to thrive in Nevada, which is not only good for Nevada customers, but it also creates good paying local jobs. Additionally, right to repair extends the lifespan of electronic equipment, which has 2 large benefits for Nevada. 1, repairing rather than replacing equipment extends lifespan of equipment, which reduces the equipment's overall total cost of ownership. This is good for Nevada customers and especially those who are disadvantaged economically. 2, because encouraging repair over replacement increases the lifespan of equipment, this reduces the amount of electronics each year that get thrown away. Electronics typically contain toxic metals, which, when discarded, leach into our environment, doing considerable damage to our ecosystem. Companies and the representatives who oppose right to repair make many claims. I've heard them claim that right to repair leads to people who are unqualified making repairs and getting injured, and shady repair shops victimizing their patrons. However, I ask you, have any of these companies or trade groups lobbied this body on behalf of worker safety or customer protection regulations in any other context? I have not. And the reason for that is that these are not the things the companies that are actually concerned about. There's only one reason these companies actively oppose right to repair, and that's money. These companies want to reserve high margin repair businesses for themselves and to encourage replacement rather than repair of the equipment that they sell. The bottom line is that right to repair is good for Nevada businesses, good for the financial well-being of Nevada residents, and good for our environment. And I encourage you to support AB 221. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen, for your testimony. Next, we are going to go to Christy Cabrera.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for the Nevada Conservation League. We are in strong support of AB 221. This bill will help our environment, save Nevadans money, and create thousands of new repair jobs in our state. Right to repair is critical to waste prevention. Americans purchase 161 million new smartphones every year. This is especially concerning knowing that a single iPhone requires 75 pounds of ore and 220 pounds of water to produce. Not being able to repair devices means they get thrown out if they break. e-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world, and Americans discard nearly 500,000 cell phones every day. Toxic metals from this e-waste then sits in our landfills and can make its way into our water and soil, leading to harmful contamination. This bill will also benefit our efforts to mitigate climate change by reducing the energy consumed in the manufacturing phase of production. For example, if we held on to our phones for just one more year on average, the emissions reductions would be equivalent to taking 636,000 cars off the road. By giving Nevadans the right to repair their electronics, we can avoid significant environmental impacts. The reuse of devices could reduce demand for natural resources, reduce toxic waste, and help mitigate climate change, all while saving Nevadans money. We applaud Assemblywoman Torres and Assemblywoman Peters for bringing forward this important legislation, and we strongly urge your support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera. I appreciate your testimony. And last, we have Mr. Andrew Flagg. Mr. Andrew Flagg, are you with us? Okay, we are now going to move to the phone lines for those wishing to testify in support. I am going to take 30 minutes of support via the phone line. We will do the same for opposition and same for neutral. Take those who have signed up to testify via video, then do 30 minutes of opposition, then take those who signed up to testify in neutral, and then take 30 minutes of neutral. Broadcasting, can we please check the telephone line for those wishing to testify in support, please?
Yes, Chair, to testify in support on AB 221, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 831, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 831, please press *6 to unmute.
Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ceci Alvarado, CECIA-ALVARADO. I am the Nevada State Director for Mi Familia Vota, and I'm here in full support of AB 221. Support the right to repair is support my right to repair. Repair helps climate change. 80% of emissions impact of a smartphone comes from production. Repair reduces the flow of toxic waste. E-waste accounts for 2% of the waste stream, but 70% is toxicity. Repair saves money. With a stronger repair right, the money spent on repair will circulate in our local economy. The right to repair supports small businesses. Right to repair legislation will prevent inflated costs from manufacturers for replacement parts. Mi Familia Vota supports AB 221, and we applaud Assemblywoman Selena Torres for sponsoring this bill. Thank you for your time.
For your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 024, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 024, please press *6 to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits of 533, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Dylan Sullivan, DYLAN SULLIVAN. Chair Haji and members of the committee, good evening. I'm Dylan Sullivan. I'm a senior scientist at the Natural Resources Defense Council. I live in Reno. Nrdc works to safeguard the earth, its people, its plants and animals, and the natural systems on which life depends, We have around 25,000 members and online activists in the state of Nevada. Nrdc supports Assembly Bill 221 because by allowing people to more easily repair the devices they purchased with their well-earned money, the legislation will reduce electronic waste, and by allowing people to keep electronics functioning for longer, it will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We strongly urge you to support Assembly Bill 221. In the interest of time, I'll end here, and I just want to +1 the comments of the Nevada Conservation League and other supporters. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 792. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
This is Patrick Donnelly, PatrickDonnelly. I'm Nevada State Director with the Center for Biological Diversity. We are in support of this bill and would echo the previous comments made by previous speakers. And the only kind of spin I would put on it in this comment is that, Nevada's sort of at the brink of a new gold rush for the minerals involved in the renewable energy transition, and that includes the minerals involved in powering our devices, lithium, possibly vanadium, other minerals. And these mines create extensive environmental impacts. And, if we're going to be pulling these minerals out of the ground, we want to make sure it's worth it. And that means that those minerals get used to the maximum possible amount of time. And repairing devices will ensure that we're efficiently using those minerals we're pulling out of the ground here in Nevada. So we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 330. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Levi Kamolnik, Kamolnick. I'm an environmental advocate and have over the past few years worked on a variety of different environmental and environmental adjacent issues facing Nevadans. I support Assembly Bill 221 because it is an idea whose time has come. Nevada needs a right to repair because the cost of continuing with the status quo is simply too high. It makes no sense for us to mine natural resources here in Nevada only to make their way directly into landfills. Even there, electronic waste and the heavy metals they release are difficult to contain and pose health hazards to nearby communities and wildlife. And beyond just the environmental concerns, small business and consumers stand to gain tremendously from passage of this bill. For local repair shops to continue to exist, they need the repair essentials this bill would give them access to, which for many business owners are becoming harder and harder to get. As a consumer, I like my phone, and I have no desire to buy the newest model. And so do thousands of Nevadans who do so simply because that's the only way for them to access a functioning device. That's wrong. I want to thank Assemblywoman Torres for courageously introducing this bill to reduce electronic waste, support small businesses who perform a critically important service to their communities, and for Nevada consumers who are sick and tired of buying a new device every time the slightest malfunction occurs. I urge you to support Assembly Bill 221 and second, the support of other groups. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Caller 1, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, committee. My name is John Hatter, Hadder. We appreciate this opportunity to comment. I am the director of Great Basin Resource Watch here in Nevada. We support the positive comments we've heard already. We very strongly support this legislation. We believe that it's time that Nevada and the rest of the country as well think about a circular economy, one in which we minimize and reduce waste as much as possible. and follow the model of Mother Nature. Mother Nature has no trash can. She uses everything. And I think we need to be just as efficient and mindful in that process for all the reasons that I've stated already. Our organization focuses on extraction and mining in Nevada, and as already been stated, mining and extraction is a very environmentally destructive activity, but it also disproportionately affects certain communities. And it's important that we recognize that that this bill, right to repair, does help to minimize the burden on those communities that shoulder the responsibilities hosting mine sites. They are going to feel the impacts most greatly than the rest of us. And it's important for us to be mindful of that environmental justice aspect, as well as the general environmental aspects of being efficient in our use of materials and not wasting the precious resources that are provided to us by this planet. Thank you very much, committee, and for this bill coming forward. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Mr. Hatter. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 084, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Cynthia Moore, CINTHIAMOORE, and I am the national lead for Ecomadres, a project of Moms Clean Air Force. Ecomadres is a program that educates, engages, and empowers Latino moms and dads to have conversations with lawmakers about the environment's effects on our children's health. Today, I am calling in support of AB 221, the Right to Repair bill, on behalf of our over 8,000 members in Nevada. AB 221 will help mitigate climate change by reducing the energy consumed in the manufacturing phase of production, which is very important to me as a mother of a 3-year-old. I'm concerned about the effect that these emissions have over our air quality. This bill will help reduce the emissions impact that comes from the production of smartphones. I would like to applaud Assemblywoman Torres for working to guarantee individuals like myself and many other Nevadans have property rights over their electronics so that we can repair our electronics when we want to and wherever we want to go to. Nevadans should have the right to repair their devices while at the same time doing their part in reducing emissions and getting us one step closer to our state climate goals. I urge you to please support AB 221. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Moore, for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
If you recently joined the call and would like to testify in support on AB 221, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits of 024, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 024, please press *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
My
can.
name's Miles Ong. Okay, good, perfect. My name's Miles Ong, M-Y-L-E-S, last name's O-N-G. Yeah, and I call in support the bill too. So one of the things that I see is that concerns me a lot is also, this environmental, the waste, deal. And I own an appliance repair business. And one of the toughest things to do is to diagnose these appliances. And the part of the issue is that they are so technical these days. They have all these boards that there's no way to really plug in anything to diagnose, like, in a car, how it's standardized. They have this, what they call a OBD sensor, and you could plug in and diagnose and then do all this stuff. Well, appliances don't have anything like that. And then the resources to get the information to diagnose these things are almost slim to none. And I, too, have to go onto YouTube a lot to try to get some of this information. And these things that, what I would love to have the manufacturer do is they need to
have it so that, all these manuals and stuff, just like how you would search when you do customer support on a laptop or anything like that, online, electronics, where you could just type in like the model number and it'll pop up, where you could download drivers, update firmware, product support like PDFs and things like that. They already have the structure in place, and they just need to do that for some of the stuff. Because I see a lot of people throw stuff away today just because they can't do the repair or try to even diagnose. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 130. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders. That's CHRISTINESAUNDERS. And I'm the Policy Director with Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, here in support of Assembly Bill 221. Plan believes everyone has the right to live in a clean and healthy environment, regardless of their race, income, or immigration status. Addressing our dependence as a nation, and especially in Nevada, on an extractive economy is central to our environmental justice campaign. Currently, poor and marginalized communities are disproportionately affected by pollution and climate change, while corporations rake in millions in profits. AB 221 would allow Nevadans to repair their technology rather than replacing it, reducing the reliance on new mining of finite resources. The environmental impacts of mining the minerals required in today's technology can pollute our streams, rivers, lakes, and over the long term for centuries, and destroy our sacred indigenous sites. This legislation also levels the playing field between corporations and Nevadans, particularly Nevada small businesses. Small businesses that service electronics in our state perform an important and necessary function in our communities. Increasingly, these shops are being forced to tell people that they cannot repair their items as the products they are able to service are rapidly going extinct. These small businesses could employ thousands of Nevadans with the passage of right to repair, as many overseas manufacturing jobs would be traded for local repair jobs. AB 221 is an important piece of legislation that puts people and planet first. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 808. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, it's Don Renner, DONRENNER, from Renner Equipment Company. I'm a John Deere farm equipment dealer with 3 different stores in the state of Nevada, employing 32 people. I agree with everything you guys are saying, but I was really happy to hear you want to exempt agriculture. And if that's so, we need to send you the language that will help you write the exemption. Let me just quickly say, the Clean Air Act, the U.S. Clean Air requires manufacturers to build in base level tampering safeguards. And we have already offered to our customer base service advisory, and we are solving the problem by offering this to our customer base. 50% of my parts go out to customers that actually fix their own equipment themselves. And so us offering customer service advisory is a way of these people being able to solve their problem in the agriculture side, which doesn't really affect what you guys are doing, but it affects us. We do not want these people tampering with our equipment, and we've already found cutthroat devices that allow these people to come in and change the price, the programs, and they're shutting down like emission systems, safety equipment, and John Deere and New Holland and CAT and ag equipment dealers. We do not need that. That turns into expensive repairs later on at the cost of the customer. So if we can, we would like to send you the language to help to exempt the ag side. And good luck on the rest of you guys' stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renner, for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move into testimony in opposition. Again, I will take those who are participating via video first, and then we will move to the telephone line. We can start with Mr. Paul Muratkin, representing the Las Vegas Chamber.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Paul Muratkin with the Vegas Chamber. I appreciate the conversations we've had with Assemblyman Torres about the bill and for us being able to share some of the concerns on behalf of our members. As you know, the Chamber has members across all sectors of the economy. Each industry can be impacted differently as we look at bills like AB 221. As a result, we have concerns with the version that has been introduced and the impact that it would have on the state's business climate. Some of the concerns included companies' ability to recover the research and development costs associated with new products or updates. There's also concern, as you've heard, about data security for customers when turning their phones over computers for repair and that data potentially being compromised. Also, the handling of lithium batteries without the proper training is a concern we've heard from our members because of safety of employees and liability for employers and the legal climate. We do believe that the proposed amendment presented tonight will address some of the concerns from our members and depending on their industry. And we'll continue to review the amendment and follow up with Assemblyman Torres. Again, we appreciate your transparency and hearing from stakeholders about this bill. Again, thank you, Chair and members of the committee for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Muratkin, for your testimony. Next, we have Mr. Dustin Breton, representing Repair Done Right Coalition. Mr. Breton, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dusty Brighton, and I represent the Repair Done Right Coalition, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The Repair Done Right Coalition is made up of companies, organizations, and people who care about ensuring that innovative products are repaired and maintained in an authorized manner. Many of the referenced companies operate in the great state of Nevada that are involved with the coalition. These companies assist in connecting consumers, businesses, and governments through products designed to assist in improving the lives of those who use them. During this pandemic, products and services manufactured by these companies and organizations have been essential in ensuring commerce and personal relationships remain intact. The Repair Done Right Coalition is opposed currently to Assembly Bill 221, which of course mandates that original equipment manufacturers of digital electronic equipment or a part of the equipment sold in Nevada to provide independent repair providers with diagnostic and repair information, software, tools, parts, and it increases safety and cybersecurity risks for consumers and businesses while threatening Nevada's innovation economy. OEMs currently offer companies or consumers a wide range of safe and secure repair options through their authorized repair networks. There are options that exist for consumers currently in getting their devices repaired. Most consumer technology products are comprised of complex electronics, which do require specialized training and sophisticated test instruments to repair safely. Some types of repairs can be extremely detailed, they're complicated, they can be dangerous to anyone without that training. It is particularly important that products containing high-energy lithium-ion batteries, which I know were referenced earlier, are required only by trained professionals who understand and can mitigate the hazards associated with installing, removing, or replacing those batteries. OEMs want to ensure that their products are serviced by professionals who understand the intricacies of their products and have spent time procuring the knowledge necessary to safely repair them and return them to consumers without compromising those standards or undermining the safety and security of their products. State law, we feel, should not mandate that all manufacturers must provide a how-to manual for any product and provide it to anyone who asks. More than 22 state legislatures have already reviewed similar legislation to this. No bills have passed, as states have come to the determination that legislating repair rules for manufacturers created a whole lot of issues and more issues for consumers than answers. Our members are committed to working to promote digital privacy and security while resisting unwarranted intervention in the marketplace with mandates that comprise consumer safety and protection. However, we feel that at this time, AB 221 does not help Nevada citizens. In fact, it could harm them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brighton, for your testimony. Members, any questions? Okay, let's go to our next presenter. Our next person testifying in opposition. We have Cameron Dimitri representing TechNet. Mr. Dimitri, are you with us?
I am, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, when you're ready, you can begin.
Great. First off, thank you for pronouncing my name right. It's not always the case. Good evening, Chair and members. My name is Cameron Dimitri. I'm the Executive Director at TechNet. TechNet's the national bipartisan network of tech CEOs and senior execs that promotes the growth of the innovation economy. We represent over 85 companies and 3.5 million customers. TechNet respectfully opposes AB 221. We believe this legislation is legislation in search of a problem, as consumers already have a choice when it comes to who repairs their devices. Thousands of repair facilities compete for customers' business each day. Tech companies have every incentive to ensure their customers have ample opportunity to get their products repaired. In fact, our brands depend on being able to provide superior customer service. This bill raises a myriad of concerns that extends far beyond the stated intent of providing access to parts, tools, tech manuals, and software to a broad range of electronic products. TechNet and its members are concerned that this bill would have the potential for troubling unintended consequences, including serious cybersecurity, privacy, and safety risks. Related to security concerns, AB 221 requires manufacturers to provide diagnostic tools, source code, and permit access to tightly controlled supply chains, unaffiliated, unvetted third parties, which may place consumer devices at risk by placing sensitive information in the hands of malicious hackers, creating a new set of cybersecurity vulnerabilities both at home and internationally. Individuals keep a wealth of sensitive personal data on their devices, including health and information. It is essential each repair person is properly trained in how not only repair the device, but also establishes a relationship with the manufacturer in order to create a critical accountability link to protect consumers. Enabling untrained and unauthorized third parties to replace and repair device components can result in the disabling of key hardware security features and can impede the update of firmware. It is important to device security and system integrity. The security breach of one device can potentially compromise the security of a platform or other connected devices in a network. Allowing unfettered access to this information is greatly outweighed by the substantial privacy and security risks. I'm not going to belabor the safety concerns, although we do echo the comments of the gentleman before me as it relates to lithium-ion batteries. And lastly, concerning environmental concerns. Our companies take tremendous pride in limiting their environmental impact. Electronic product manufacturers have substantial environmental accountability programs and have designed policies to ensure that they are continuously improving the sustainability of their products, reducing the overall amounts of e-waste generated. According to the US EPA data, electronics are the fastest declining products in the municipal solid waste stream. Most recent EPA data shows that e-waste generation declined 5% annually. And according to a recent study by Yale, e-waste generation in the US peaked in 2015 and is in the period of extended decline. Our companies have worked diligently to ensure customers have options while simultaneously protecting the security and the integrity of their devices. For these reasons, we oppose this measure. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Dimitri. And Mr. Secretary, please note that Vice Chair Carlton has joined us, and please mark her present. I apologize, Assemblymember Flores. I asked the committee if they had questions, and then I moved on without seeing your message. So, Assemblymember Flores, I'm not sure if your question was for the current presenter or the person who was testifying before, but please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opposition testimony. I appreciate the sentiment, and I think we all probably echo that sentiment of data privacy and ensuring that we're protecting the consumer. At the end of the day, that's the whole point of engaging in this conversation. I'm just curious to understand the certification process. So Company A has XYZ technology. obviously they have folk that do repairs and they go through a certification process to ensure that X, Y, and Z are operating to its full capacity. And if not, you take it to them and then they'll make sure they do that. I guess I'm curious to understand what is the difference between the certification process of that company engaging in that market and then having a third party going through a similar certification process, training and understanding and being able to achieve the same objective. I'm having a difficult time with the I guess I don't see the line why this human with this training is capable of achieving all the safety standards, but not this other individual, the third party. And I think of that because I know folk who work, and I see those stores like the cell phone repair, XYZ. There's a bunch of those in my district, and I have a friend of mine who specifically works in that industry, who's actually, in fact, has repaired the cell phone that I use now. He's done numerous repairs himself on this cell phone. And I'm just curious to understand where that is. Where is it that individual can't do the repair and it's so dangerous for him to do it, but not somebody from the other company? I just see it as everybody will get the training they need. So if you could just help me understand that, please. And then I may have a follow-up after that, Madam Chair.
Assemblymember Flores. Mr. Brighton or Mr. Dimitri, did one of you want to address the Assemblymember's question?
Hi, Assemblymember. This is Cameron Dimitri with TechNet. I'll try my best to answer your question. I think that the nuance behind your particular question is related to who we have an authorized relationship with. We have authorized repair programs that we do that you can join depending on the company, take a 20-hour certification course, low barrier to entry in 12 different languages, and be able to provide that service. The issue with this bill is not having that accountability link, which I mentioned, with whoever may or may not be operating or fixing or repairing one of these devices.
Madam Chair, if I could have a quick follow-up.
Yes, Assemblymember Flores.
And so would you support this bill if there was language in there where it said you have to have X, Y, and Z minimum standard of training certification? Would that then make you more comfortable in saying, all right, we're setting the floor for what every individual tech working in this space must have? And if you meet that minimum standard, then you can come into the space. Would you be in support of a bill that had that specific language in there?
Hi, Assemblymember. I think we're at fundamental odds with
I'm sorry, Mr. Dimitri, if you would just identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, Cameron Dimitri with TechNet. Hi, Assemblymember. In response to your question, we have fundamental concerns with this bill and the expansion of potential liability. So that's not what's before us today. The answer to that question is no.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Members, any other questions before I move on? Okay, so broadcasting, if we could please check the telephone line for those wishing to testify in opposition.
Testify in opposition on AB 221. Please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 718. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Rob Jackson, ROBJACKSON. I represent Stokes Equipment, the Director of Regional Operations. We have 25 locations across the Western U.S. with one of our locations in Las Vegas and Speaker Frierson's district. Overall, so I've been happy with the conversation and the direction it's gone. I do feel, we're not cell phones, obviously, and I think that's been distinguished through several of the comments we've made. The equipment that we service and we represent has more implications around safety and other issues that I think we would like further clarification on what digital electronic equipment actually represents. Let me give you a quick example. if someone were to take a generator, which is under $5,000, which does have electronic, digital electronic equipment as a part of the generator, and they were to alter the emissions or safety features for any reason, which we've seen happen, people do it now. But if we allow that and we allow people to alter any type of how the machines operate, then there's seriously safety issues that we have to consider. And so that originally was my opposition, especially as farm equipment was related. You change the RPMs of limits on a machine, you can have catastrophic failures of equipment and death or serious injury. You change safety devices or sensor requirements on a generator, you could have fires, you could have electrocution, you could have other issues. So we're definitely not cell phones. I do like the idea of having your cell phone repaired and your computer repaired, and I do like the idea of having more accessible options. I know in our industry we've taken great care to try to help our customers repair. About 60% of John Deere parts are sold over the counter to consumers who repair their own equipment. We provide manuals and training and equipment. Consumers can even acquire the same tech support that we get as a dealership that's currently offered through John Deere. So I like the direction it's going in. I would urge the committee to further, as you discussed, define what digital electronic equipment is. And I would argue that anything that has a motor in it or moving components that could cause damage if they're repaired by a consumer inappropriately, that those be exempt from the current bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 188. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chair Housekeeping, Vice Chair Carlton, members of the committee. My name is Timothy Johnson, Johnsson, with the Entertainment Software Association. I'm here tonight respectfully to oppose AB 221, which seeks to create a right to repair mandate. ESA serves as the voice and advocate for the U.S. video game industry. The makers of all three console systems, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, are ESA members. People who play video games represent a diverse cross-section of the United States spanning every age, gender, and ethnicity. Not only do 75% of U.S. households have at least one gamer at home, our industry also has an economic footprint that touches every state. Consoles offer security safeguards that help protect our players' personal data and sensitive information that may be stored locally. Accordingly, permitting repair by unauthorized parties may create risks that bad actors could exploit. Top games can take several years to develop and cost tens of millions, or in some cases, more than $100 million to produce. A right to repair mandate poses a high risk to video game creators and other copyright owners who rely upon a secure media ecosystem of the game console to safeguard their copyrighted works against sophisticated piracy efforts. Piracy of video games downloaded from the internet is a billion-dollar problem for the industry. It is a fact that there is a thriving modification market offering tools and other ways to modify game consoles in order to play these illegal games downloaded from the internet. To help prevent content theft, video game software, firmware, and hardware have built-in security features known as technological protection measures, or TPMs, to prevent the play of unauthorized video game content and access to other content on the console. TPMs help create a secure media platform. The biggest benefit of a secure media platform is that it provides video game publishers, music distributors, and video game streaming platforms with assurances that their content will be safe. Sharing hardware schematics, sensitive diagnostic information, tools, and security-related reset codes with unauthorized third parties would compromise the security of the entire platform and harm console makers and copyright owners. It is important to note here that Section 1201 of the DMCA prohibits the trafficking of tools used to circumvent technological protection measures, such as those protecting video game consoles. A state can't override federal law to require tools be provided in order for an unauthorized repair person to fix a device. If it does, there would likely be preemption lawsuit against the state. Every day, millions of Americans enjoy playing video games on their consoles. The continued viability and success of the game console business is dependent upon a trustworthy and secure delivery platform. If platforms are compromised, which we believe they will be if a right to repair mandate is imposed, It will hurt game publishers, console makers, and consumers' trust in a protected and entertaining gameplay environment. Thank you very much for allowing me to testify this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Broadcasting, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 264. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 264. Please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, Fielding Greaves, F-I-E-L-D-I-N-G. Last name Greaves, G-R-E-A-V-E-S. I'm with the Advanced Medical Technology Association, today respectfully opposed. Medical technology frequently incorporates elements of consumer electronics like cameras and computers, so we think we're squarely within the scope of the bill. And likewise today, consumer electronics play an increasingly important role in healthcare. We're opposed in principle because of the significant risks to patient safety and cybersecurity, including the risks of death or serious injury from negligently repaired products, as well as significant liability concerns that are not addressed in the bill. Fundamentally, the bill is not needed. I think, as you've heard a little bit, there's already a vast array of authorized service people in the market and no objective evidence of a shortage or delay in getting devices repaired. Finally, independent repair people are totally unregulated today. There's no licensure, no training requirements, no oversight of this industry at all. And in an age of high-profile cyber attacks on hospitals and throughout the healthcare system and consumer electronics, it's simply too dangerous and risks giving the keys to the kingdom away to unknown third parties. We'd please respectfully request your no vote on the bill before you today, and available to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 272. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Keane, John-Keane. I'm with the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers, or AHAM, and we are in opposition to AB 221. AHAM believes this bill raises far more safety concerns it seeks to address. AHAM represents the entirety of the appliance industry, from your dishwasher, electric range, to your refrigerator. Without our repairs include the handling of electricity, gas, and water. In fact, appliances are subject to electrical codes, building codes, plumbing codes, safety standards, make sure products are handled safely. One thing to keep in mind for repairs in our industry is the fact that repairs occur in people's homes. Therefore, safety and security take on additional meanings. That is why it's paramount to have authorized repair professional who is trained to properly handle our products to make sure the customer remains safe. These authorized repair providers use parts that have been tested and qualified to meet the reliability, safety requirements of the home appliance. Opening up the repair process to any third party could lead to using incorrect or counterfeit parts, result in a potential safety issue or performance degradation. Property repairs could also lead to property damage and could lead to compromising of the safety features of the product. With that, I strongly urge you to oppose AB 221, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Keane. Broadcasting, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 948. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last three digits of 948. Please press *6 to unmute.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Lisa McCabe, MCC ABE, here on behalf of CTIA, the Trade Association for the Wireless Communications Industry, in opposition to AB 221. The marketplace already provides a wide range of consumer choice for electronic repair without the mandates imposed by this legislation. For example, manufacturers have relationships with authorized repair providers. These providers, which include local small businesses,
have received the appropriate training from the manufacturer, and have the qualifications to ensure that repairs are done properly and safely. Manufacturers go to great lengths to produce products of the highest quality. Authorized repair ensures that those products maintain that high quality and guarantees that repairs meet manufacturer standards. In addition to authorized repair providers, manufacturers offer walk-in repair options at retail as well as mail-in service. Insurance providers also offer authorized remote technicians that may even travel to a consumer to perform a repair. Consumers can currently use independent repair today, although manufacturers cannot guarantee the quality assurance of independent repair providers. We're concerned that this legislation would have a number of unintended consequences for the operation of electronic devices. For example, even if an independent repairer is provided the technical information required under this bill without specific training on reassembling his device, they could unintentionally cause antenna performance problems or put stress on a device's frame, which could make it break more easily when dropped. Separate from authorized repair, CTIA offers a learning management program that creates a network of independent repairers to help consumers identify qualified independent repairers. CTIA is happy to work with the Chamber of Commerce to share awareness of this program in Nevada. This is a marketplace response with no need for legislation. We respectfully oppose AB 221. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCabe, for your testimony. Broadcasting, next caller.
Caller with the last three digits of 257, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening. Thank you for taking a moment to hear from me. My name is Blaze Griffin, BLAZE GRIFFIN. I am the business owner in Nevada. I'm an owner of 2 farm equipment dealerships in Lund and Winnemucca. We employ 31 people full-time, and I believe the way that the bill is written, it may have some unintended consequences for the farm equipment industry. As an equipment dealer, we help and service hundreds of farmers across the state. These customers currently have access to service manuals, special tools, and parts to repair their machines. And in the very near future, they will have access to the computer diagnostic programs that will allow them to read codes and diagnose. I know Massey Ferguson and New Holland, who we represent, is in the process of rolling that out. No further legislation is necessary, and the customer already has the ability to repair their own farm equipment they buy from us if they choose. One unintended consequence that would come from this is the customer's ability to have access to change software and engine controllers. This becomes an issue in 2 key areas: safety and used equipment values. Safety is a concern because customers would be able to change the chip in the engines to get more horsepower out of them. More power is not always better, and these machines are expensive and pull expensive implements. If a tractor is overpowering an implement, it is not only bad for the equipment, but will result in severe safety issues, such as the implement being pulled apart, and for the operator, that could result in serious injury or death. Secondly, as changes are made to equipment, it will substantially change the trade in or book value of the machines. Auctions are already seeing equipment that has been altered that will no longer work correctly and are costing people serious amounts of money to be fixed. We as dealers will not be able to offer the high trade values because machines are altered, and we won't be able to sell them unless we bring them back to original factory specs. This will hurt the farm equipment owners. I'd like to formally request that you include the exemption language submitted by the Far West Equipment Dealers Association to avoid the unintended consequences this bill will create for the end users of farm equipment. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Griffin. Broadcasting, next caller.
There are no more callers in opposition at this time.
Okay, thank you. And members, I will let you go back to one person who wished to testify in opposition on video that I kind of overskipped, so I do apologize, Mr. Alcorn, but we do have Mr. Walter Alcorn here to provide testimony in opposition as well.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to testify. I do want to encourage the committee to oppose this legislation. My name is Walter Alcorn. I'm the Vice President for Environmental Affairs and Industry Sustainability for the Consumer Technology Association. And CTA is probably best known as the owners and producers of CES. And some of the discussion earlier I find quite interesting. Our organization used to be called the Consumer Electronics Association. And of course, CES was short for the Consumer Electronics Show. And just to provide you some insight into why those names changed, we found that really devices were not the only thing that were carrying electronics. So some of the discussion about the definitions of basically there is no definition in code currently for consumer electronics. Well, it has really changed, and we are seeing electronics embedded in so many products. That's been great for CES, and it's been great, I think, overall for the economy. But I would very much encourage you to be cautious as you write legislation with this kind of a mandate, because some of the things you've heard, I don't know, with the Internet of Things and electronics being embedded in as many people, I don't know if you can come up with all the exemptions that you would want. I would encourage you to think carefully about that. As you know, CES is the largest business gathering in the United States, if not the world, depending on how you count that. It brings about $290 million a year, at least in a non-pandemic year, to the state's economy. And my comment is just going to focus on some of the environmental issues, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I've really worked for the past 20 years on electronics recycling issues and e-waste as an independent consultant before coming to CEA 10 years ago. And one of the things that you should know is not only are electronics the fastest declining portion or product in the municipal solid waste stream in the United States, as was mentioned by a speaker earlier, but the discussion about smartphones, which I think has been a focus of a lot of the folks around this legislation, the idea that people are throwing away smartphones and other mobile devices is just not backed up by the data. We at CTA, we do every couple of years a national consumer survey, and we ask folks what they do with their various products when they're done with them. And what we found is that only 2% of consumers actually throw their old smartphone in the trash. And of course, they're not throwing their smartphone in the trash because it's valuable. 10 times that many, or 20% of consumer respondents, say that they trade it in. Well, they trade it in because there's reuse value, because there's value in these used devices. They actually are being repaired. And by the way, 3 times as many as throw them away, give them away, or they sell them, or another 3 times as many recycle them. So, you know, there actually is a very vibrant and active reuse and repair market out there. I think one of the things we're hearing is it's a fight about who does it and a fight about market share. So, you know, there may be some other reasons that you choose to enact legislation like this, but the concern about e-waste it should not be one of them. It's just not backed up by the data. And I'll just close by saying I was very interested in the speaker earlier, who's an authorized printer repair professional. I don't know what happened in that situation. That's actually that's not some situation that I've heard before at a hearing like this. But certainly, you know, as a representative of manufacturers and retailers, we would want to make sure that these products are repaired correctly, and then when they're completely done with their useful life, that they're recycled appropriately. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak today.
Mr. Elkhorn, and I believe I do have a question for you from Mr. Flores.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, sir, and thank you for joining us. And I don't know if that is necessarily a question that you are best positioned to answer, but I've heard now the mention that this legislation has been proposed by numerous other states and or something similar. I think I heard something like 22 or 25. And I only mentioned that and then that the legislation didn't go through for one reason or the other, But I think that's, number one, it's alarming that you have 25 states who recognize that there is an issue in this space, right? Not just Nevada, consistently legislators who walk in very different shoes and have very different environments from Nevada and or may have very similar environments. They're all engaging in this conversation. So for us to dismiss the fact that 25 states are engaging in this dialogue and say the fact that the bill has not moved there and or hasn't passed is not a way to say that Nevada's on the wrong track. It means collectively, almost as a country, we're moving in this direction where we recognize that there's a space that required us to intervene because the private market on its own has created issues where we see now that we have to insert ourselves to try to do something collectively for the benefit of the consumer and everybody else. And so I keep hearing the term unintended consequences, and obviously we've seen scenarios where cell phones were blowing up in people's pockets, right? And that was an unintended consequence. Obviously, the industry did not mean for that to occur. But this notion that somehow allowing more people to come into the space, that we're transparent and that we allow more market share to just general small businesses is going to somehow create an environment where everybody is being reckless. I just have a hard time understanding where that's coming from. What data supports that notion, right? I will take a vehicle to get, I'm very big on cars. I love my cars. I will go to 5 different shops and they'll tell me I can't do that. I'm not equipped. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the training, the expertise. And until I find the right shop to be able to do that. And I see this with technology doing the same thing, right? We'll open the playing field. We let people come into the space, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to partake in it. Not everybody's going to participate. Not everybody's going to say, let's do it. So I'm having a hard time understanding this notion that if we open it and allow more people to come into this space where we have these concerns that have been raised, why that is going to yield to all of a sudden everybody's just going to be doing all these repairs and causing harm to the consumer. If you could help me understand that a little bit better.
Sure. If I could respond, thank you very much for the question. A couple of thoughts. I think one of the reasons that consumer electronics manufacturers are so sensitive is their business model is based on their brand reputation. And these are, I think, by most people's tracking, the most valuable brands in the world. And unlike cars, whenever you get, say, a 5-year-old one of these, you at this point don't expect others other than, say, the manufacturer or their authorized representative to have gotten inside it and put different parts in it or something like that. It's just how we've gotten here to this part. And I think the concern that these companies have in protecting their brands, and these products still carry their names on them, is in particular that the repairs will be done wrong or that substandard parts will be included and basically, the customer experience will be different. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I think that's from what I can see, that's been the driver. And I think, and I don't want to criticize anybody for thinking about this idea in general, because frankly, the organization that I work for, CTA, when automobile repair came up about 7-8 years ago, we supported it. And for some of the same reasons that I think you're sympathetic to it. I mean, you work on cars. I mean, we have a tremendous history in this country of DIY repairs, of independent repair shops on automobiles. But you know what? As an organization, as the car industry has changed and evolved, and now we're actually talking about, safety features. We're talking about self-driving vehicles. We no longer weigh in on that issue because the industry has changed. Cars have changed, and bumpers now have sensors in them that are tied into their computer systems, and things have gotten a lot more complicated. I know I'm not giving you any good answers, but it's just we're seeing the markets changing as well, and so our position has evolved with that.
Thank you, sir. And I think we all echo your sentiment of safety. And I appreciate that lens and tone. I just think that there is a place for us to come into this space and uphold that value of safety while the value of other folk coming into the space. And I appreciate the combo. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Member Flores. And Mr. Elkhorn, I do apologize for skipping you all together at the beginning of the opposition. I apologize for that, but glad we were able to get you in and get your testimony on the record.
Thank you. You're running a tremendously efficient hearing, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now I don't have anyone signed up to testify in neutral on video. So broadcasting, can we please go to the telephone line for those wishing to testify in neutral?
Yes, Chair, to testify in neutral on AB 221, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 490, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Cyrus Ojadi, Cyrus Hojjaty. I will take a neutral position. I've heard a lot of good arguments on both sides. I think you should probably maybe change a few things in this bill so that we can keep protecting the environment. Thank you for your time.
Broadcasting, next caller, please.
Chair, there are no more callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Assemblymember Torres, would you like to give any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and defer to Assemblywoman Peters, who's going to clarify a couple things for the record, and then I'll go ahead and give the closing remarks.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblywoman Peters, for the record, I think it's really interesting that Mr. Alcorn said that one of the most important parts of the business model of these tech companies is that how they're represented to their users, right? And I think that kind of is in line with what Assemblyman Flores was saying about car maintenance, and that word of mouth means a lot when you're dealing with someone's really expensive purchase. And for most people, I think a phone is one of the biggest purchases of their life. A gaming console is one of the biggest purchases of their life. And that is worth, taking the time to vet out who you take those pieces of equipment to. I also would be interested to see if they have a survey of folks and their experiences at the Genius Bar and just how well that rates among users of that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of environmental waste. When I was 12, I built my first computer from scratch. When I bought my first laptop in college, I was so disappointed that I couldn't do the work on it myself, that I had to find somebody to repair it for me. Then I bought my second laptop, and I couldn't find anybody to repair it for me because it cost too much to find the repair pieces, and they told me to just buy a new one. I hear most from constituents about where can they find a place to recycle or reuse their tech equipment, their cell phones, printers, gaming devices. I myself, as an environmentalist, have a pile in my basement of old tech equipment that I can't find a place to take because it costs too much to pull it apart and recycle it, and nobody repairs them anymore. So I don't, maybe I'm an oddball, maybe my family's an oddball, but I think that's a reality, and 2% of people only 2% of people in these surveys saying that they throw away their equipment, I think is underrepresented. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the replacement of components within those devices. So we heard a lot about the idea of data security, of breaking the digital information on phones. And I just want to be clear that when you are replacing components of a phone, it's not the digital information held on the phone. You replace it with a chip that has the digital components already on it. And it's typically an authorized chip. That's part of the point of this bill, is to get more people access to those authorized pieces of equipment that would be used to replace those parts in your cell phone. It doesn't actually touch the digital data that the opposition was referring to. I just want to mention that people who tinker and are the people who end up doing these repairs as a small business owner. And those people have an immense amount of integrity related to the experience of being a tinkerer and working in this space. I don't think you go into the work of technology without having some vested interest in the parts and pieces that you use and in finding ways to make it operational again. And it is so defeating. It is so defeating. And from experience, to not be able to work on your own equipment, to not be able to make something function again, that you know you have the capacity to do, you just can't find the resources to do it. I'm going to pass it back to Assemblywoman Torres. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Assemblywoman Peters, for your remarks. This is Assemblywoman Torres for the record. I'm going to reiterate a point that was made previously in this committee hearing. And there's currently over 25 states looking at policy like this. And the reason we're looking at policy like this is because consumers across the nation know that it's time for us to be able to just fix our stuff. I'd like to address a couple points from the opposition. And I really appreciate the support and opposition for coming together to discuss this legislation today. I know various industries have asked us to strengthen the definition of consumer electronics, and I'm committed to continuing this discussion. In fact, I've emailed them, a couple of them, throughout this hearing to ensure that we set up those meetings in a timely manner. We've all heard a lot of concerns about cybersecurity and consumer privacy. And allowing for independent repair providers does not put the consumer at a greater danger than they have by giving their password to a friend or a key to the cleaning company or the pool guy. I know I'm guilty of that myself. I just give the key to somebody and say, just go do it, because I know I'm not going to be home until late in the evening. And many of us do that. That puts our house at as much danger, if not more, than it does when we give them when we just give our cell phone over. I'm open to language that permits for tech companies to impose certification requirements and create contracts between tech companies and independent repair shops. And I've said that over and over again before this hearing, in meetings, and again during this hearing, that I'm open to that amendment. TechNet said that there are certification programs available at some tech companies, and I appreciate that they have those programs in place. And I want to see us be able to expand those programs so that we have more independent repair providers here in the state of Nevada. Like I've said in this committee and in this meeting, I'm open to continuing to work with every single stakeholder to create a floor or a mandatory training for independent repair shops that wish to have access to the schematics, manuals, tools, and parts. I hear that that is one of the concerns, and I'm willing to work on that. But I also hear from my independent repair providers that this should be accessible, that there should be a mechanism for them to achieve that goal. To the argument that lithium-ion batteries are dangerous. You know, there aren't too many people in this legislative body that understands the danger of batteries more than I don't know how else to say it, but a former battery person. And so, you know, I understand that argument. And I think it's extremely important that, you know, there's correct labeling. And I believe that there's currently some federal mandates for how we label items that are flammable, items that are dangerous. And I'm open to continuing to perhaps putting that into this legislation, that any dangerous component is properly labeled and identified, and how to put it out is a part of that packaging as well. I hear that concern, you know, to the concern that this bill is not needed in Nevada. I think every single small business owner who called in today, every single consumer who called in today to say that it was necessary would disagree. And I think that this is very much a piece of legislation that we need here in Nevada, and I think 25 other states would agree with us. I want the members of this committee to think about their cars. When has it been acceptable for you to be required to go to your dealer to replace a tire on your car or the bumper on your car? And if it stopped working every single time you went to a mechanic that wasn't at the dealer, this committee would be enraged. This bill prevents substandard parts from being put in these devices because it requires that tech industries make the original OEM parts and the tools independent repair providers need to diagnose them available so that they can provide a consumer with a phone that is the same. It's not a third-party part. It would be the OEM part. Currently, repair providers cannot get access to these parts and have to repair them with third-party parts from other places. This, to me, is a bigger consumer concern than this piece of legislation. When a consumer purchases a product, they should have the right to repair it. And this will create some competition for tech companies. But I think that this is what's best for Nevada consumers and Nevada small businesses. Independent repair providers throughout Nevada are small businesses. Expanding access to repair shops will help Nevadans find gainful employment and will help Nevadans, consumers, repair their devices. I urge you to support AB 221.
Thank you, Assemblymember Torres and Assemblymember Peters, for being with us here on a Monday evening. I will now close the hearing on Assembly Bill 221. Members, the last item on our agenda is public comment. On broadcasting, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
To take your place in public comment, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 490, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, my name is Cyrus Hojjati, Cyrus-Hojjaty. I've seen a lot of progressive organizations out there, and I do listen to many progressive broadcasts, but I've noticed many of these organizations are missing out on a lot of important issues. If you look at Plan and many others, they don't talk about the greed and recklessness of Wall Street. They don't talk about the grotesque levels of income inequality where CEOs making 500 times a typical employee. I don't even hear that from the culinary union. They don't talk about campaign finance reform. They don't talk about the ongoing military interventions overseas, which is actually intensifying. They don't talk about the abusive lobbying power of many sectors like casino lobby. I think what's happening is they're focusing too much on social justice issues. In other words, they're more focused on racial pay gap, but not so much on CEO and worker pay gap. But unfortunately, with the recent elections of the Nevada Democratic Party chair, I'm very optimistic. Judith Whitmer won. I know her. I've had great conversations with her. She's really aware of these issues. She's really aware of the dirty political machine in the state. And hopefully all Nevadans can unite and we can work together, have a common goal, get the elephant out of the room, and we can send a message all across the United States. So I understand there's a lot of important issues, but I feel like a lot of important issues are being tossed out of the window. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Hojjati. I'm broadcasting. Next caller.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no more callers at this time.
Thank you so much, broadcasting. I want to just take a moment to thank broadcasting, thank our committee staff, and thank all of the members for being here on a Monday evening. I appreciate all of the great questions and the great discussion. With that, our committee meeting today is adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday at 1 p.m. Thank you, members on broadcasting and committee staff. Thank you. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.